Welcome to ClickFunnels Radio, the podcast that brings you the latest strategies, insights, and success stories from online marketers just like you who utilize funnels to grow their business. Our mission is simple: to help you unleash the true potential of your online business by harnessing the power of funnels. Join us every week as we bring you exclusive interviews and thought-provoking discussions that will revolutionize the way you approach online marketing. Here are your hosts, Laura Demetrius and Chris Cameron.
Well, welcome back to ClickFunnels Radio. My name is Chris Cameron, and joined with me, as always, is my awesome co-host, Laura Demetrius. Laura, how are you today?
Hello. I'm doing great today. Thanks, Chris.
Well, I am very excited for our guest. This is maybe something that has not been nearly as traditional for us here at ClickFunnels and at ClickFunnels Radio. I want to introduce Doug Wing. This guy, for 45 years, worked at Little Giant as a VP of sales. This guy was also an owner. And it's actually kind of a family business. His story is fascinating. But this company has done, they really grew to like 200 million in annual revenue, making them the third largest ladder company, but has since retired. He's now living in Phoenix area. He recently founded this investment group for real estate property management called Boris Investment Group. He also has a book called Giant Success, and his newest book is called The Giver. And it's exciting because he's engaged to Heidi. I want to say her name right. Why don't you just say that for me, Doug?
It's pronounced wtih.
This is exciting, and she's actually coming to the States tomorrow. So this is going to be really, really cool. But hey, welcome out, Doug. It's so good to see you, my friend.
Chris, Laura, thank you. It's a real honor to be on this program. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us.
You've done so much. You know, a lot of times we'll have coaches. We're going to have experts on here, and people want to talk about landing pages. But your expertise has been growing a very, very large, not only physical company, e-commerce company, but it's a huge business. How many employees did you have at the top? Like, what were the most employees that you guys had?
Right around 400.
It's a massive company, 200 million a year with a physical product. And it's based out of Springville, Utah. That's correct. The manufacturing and everything else. Well, okay. You also did a lot of sales. So we may dive into that a little bit, but I want to kind of know, one of the first things I want to know is your dad founded this company. Mm-hmm. And he has a legacy, and that's really kind of what this book, Giant Success, is all about. I want to know maybe some of the pros and cons about a family business. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? How's it working with your dad, maybe with your brothers? What's that like, especially when it's such a large business?
Yeah, and try to remember, in the beginning, it was, very small. The company was. My dad started it. We had a couple people in manufacturing. We had a couple people, in sales. And then you have a 10-year-old Doug and a 12-year-old brother, my brother. Honestly, we started at the very bottom. My dad was super smart. I mean, he was kind of old school, kind of a little hardcore, but we started out sweeping, the shop, cleaning bathrooms, and then gradually, we worked into manufacturing. One thing I really admire and appreciate my dad for was that we weren't just given everything. We started at the bottom. We learned every part of the company, and especially manufacturing. We did that for years and years during, our school years and junior high and high school, and even going through college and different things like that. And that really served us well, because when we got into sales and we met with customers, we knew exactly how the products were built. And that was the first thing. We could explain it to people, but it also gave us an appreciation for our employees who worked so hard for us year after year, building these products. And that was hard work. And it really gave me an appreciation of these people that busted their rear ends for us year after year. And it helps you to appreciate what they do for you as your employees.
I loved reading this book. I think I listened to it on a plane ride. It's a quick read. It's awesome. And I knew some things about your dad, right? I mean, I grew up here locally in Utah, and your dad not only was, the owner of this business, ran the business, but he also did a lot in the community. Mm-hmm. I mean, from your perspective, there's a lot of business owners that listen to this. What would you say to somebody? This guy was the mayor of Springville. How did he and how did you continue to balance this work-life community church? Like, How do you balance all of that at the same time?
Well, one thing about my dad that was really impressive that I talk to people about is when he passed away, he was good friends with Gary Herbert, who was the governor of Utah. And he actually spoke at this event, and he said Hal Wing always told people that he was in the ladder business, but that's not true. Hal Wing was in the people business. And so my dad just loved people, and he cared about them so much. He, as an employer, he really loved his people, and that made a huge difference. They knew he cared about them. He knew every person, all 400 people by name. He could walk through the shop, he could walk through the office, and he knew something about every one of them. And so he took an interest in them. He really loved them. And I'm telling you, our employees knew that my father loved them and cared about them. And I know that they worked extra hard for him. In fact, Jerry Jessen, one of the employees that retired from our company, he said, I knew your dad loved me so much. It made me work even so much harder because I didn't want to disappoint him. And so, he just loved people. And a lot of people don't know, but
it sounds like he was the dad to everyone.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that he was a big giver. That second book was written about his philanthropic efforts and what he did. He did a lot of things in secret, and I didn't find out about a lot of them until I wrote Giant Success, because I interviewed almost 40 people, and people came up to me and, as in these interviews, they'd say, your dad did this for me. He did this. And I was like, what the heck? I didn't even know.
Wow.
So anyway, he just was incredible. And really, he built people. There's a plaque on the front of Little Giant. You've probably seen, Chris, that says, if you concentrate on building the business and not the man, you will not succeed. But if you concentrate on building the man, you achieve both. And so he really was a builder of people. He took extra interest in people who were down on their luck, people who came out of prison. No one would give him a chance. And my dad, I think he was kind of an underdog growing up. He was short. He was, he had really bad acne when he was growing up, and he got teased a lot. And so he looked out for other people who were a little down on their luck.
From a personal perspective, and some of those who know me may know this, that my brother and Doug actually worked together for a while. My brother did some telecom sales at Little Giant for years. So these guys were on the road. But one story that he told me, Doug, is he was in a meeting or something like that. And he said Hal walked by and went in and said, Ted, come with me. And then you guys all kind of walked out to the back, and he said, we're going dirt bike riding, because he knew Ted loved to go dirt bike riding. And that's something that he would do after work or sometimes during work with you guys. So I want to say thank you, because I know from personal experience, the type of culture that you have there at Little Giant. So that's pretty fascinating. One thing that I want to ask, though, okay, and we're going to get into the business side of this a little bit more, is you're a physical manufacturing company. You get these big companies, where you sell a lot of ladders to, I don't know, AT&T or to Home Depot. But how did you kind of navigate technology through the years? We have a lot of people who are online, and I know you did some of the stuff where you do even demos online. How did you guys harness technology over the years into what and how you're using it today?
Well, the answer to that question is we had a lot of really smart people working for us. And that's one thing that my dad was really good at, is he knew that he wasn't the smartest at everything. And so he got smart people to do marketing, to do manufacturing, to do engineering, to do all of these things. And so he would surround himself with talented people. We knew we had great products. We had the best products in the world. We spent a lot of money on innovation and quality, and that really helped us pay dividends. But of course, you have to get the word out as well. And so really what made the company hugely successful, and a lot of people don't know this, but when we launched our infomercial, Little Giant we were almost out of business. I mean, We had kind of been, sitting on our laurels for several years. We had renewed our patents, but we were kind of one trick pony type of company. And that, when those patents expired and when other competitors came out at half the price of ours, it really made us become a better company. And the start of that was the infomercial. And so here you got these companies that came out and knocked us off for half the price out of Asia. And everybody was panicking. People were leaving. And the one person that never panicked was Hal Wing. He said, hey, this product sells well at trade shows, at fairs, by doing a demonstration, by being in front of people. And so we decided, and the interesting story about the infomercial is Little Giant did not have enough money to do an infomercial. At that time, it was $1 million. And, right around that price. And my dad leveraged his farm. This is the kind of confidence that Hellwing had in his ability, and also in the company and the employees and the products. He went and leveraged his farm, got the money to do this. And it was a huge success. Now, I think one of the reasons why it was a huge success was, number one, the products were great, but number two, Hal Wing was on the infomercial, and he had such passion for the company that it made it hugely successful. But what Little Giant did after that, kind of to answer your question, is we went into innovation. We learned from our mistakes, and we took the money. You got to remember, we four times our sales in 1 year.
Wow.
And then the next year we 4 times our sales again. And so we had this huge, amazing experience where we were building ladders 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, 3 shifts. So we took a lot of that money, reinvested it back in the company and in innovation and in new products. And from there, we went out and grew the business. And so, but again, as it got, as things changed in the business world and people didn't go to trade shows anymore, then we started doing more video marketing and online selling and different things like that. And that really helped us when we went into COVID, because COVID, everything was shut down. And we had, we built this huge studio and called it Little Giant Live, and did a lot of our meetings and different things like that over Zoom and different things, like that. So we really, we evolved from big time from what we were.
Massive, super massive growth. And I love that your journey started by focusing on the people, putting people first, which grew your business. And then with your business growth came advancements in technology. It was kind of like an organic path that probably happened very rapidly.
Yeah. And the one thing about, a lot of people say, how did you guys do what you did? How did you grow the company selling at 2 or 3 times sometimes the price of your competitors? And the way that we did that was growing it through building relationships with people, and then listening to what they needed, what their why was. And then we built products to help them be more successful and more safer, because ladders are dangerous, right? People fall off ladders and they get hurt or killed, all the time. And so we listened to our customers and built them what they needed. And then we built quality, and we did that through patents and all that stuff. And that really helped the company grow. But I always say, I never felt like I was a salesman. I felt like I was more like an advisor. And we would go to customers and say, what do you need? And what are your pain points? And they would tell you. And there were times that we didn't have a product that they had, and I would go out and try to source a product, even if we didn't make it. And so people really appreciated that you weren't just trying to sell them something, but you were there to help them be more safe and more successful.
Yeah.
Doug, were there times where you had, for example, somebody who said, hey, this is my pain point? Were you able to go and create the solution for them with Little Giant products? Did you take something and say, all right, this is what the industry needs, and I've heard it 5 or 10 times, and then go and create a product and fill that?
Great question. Yes. And that's where your brother came in and worked together. So what happened is we were invited, we were at a trade show, and we had 3 individuals that worked for big cable companies, Charter, Comcast, and another one. And they were safety directors. Even though they were competitors, they worked together, and their number 1 and number 2 issues they had were, like Comcast, people crashing the vans, right? Backing into people, backing into buildings, backing into poles or crashing. And then the other one was people were falling off ladders, and they were hurting their shoulders and backs because the ladders were 100 pounds that they were using. And so we had these 3 gentlemen come up to us at the show, and they said, is there any way you guys could take an extension ladder, a 28-foot ladder, from 100 pounds down to 50? And I was sitting there thinking,
cut it in half.
Yeah. And there's no way we can do anything like this. These were fiberglass ladders. We didn't even make them at the time. And Ryan Moss, our CEO, looked at these 3 gentlemen and he says, yes, we will do it. And they walked off. We got their cards and everything, and we gave them our cards. I looked at Ryan. I said, Ryan, we don't even have anything like this. And he says, we're going to make it. And what had happened is they went to Warner Ladder Company, Louisville Ladder, Bauer, all these companies, and they said, yes, we will make them. And then they just lied and didn't build them. And so those gentlemen later became my friends, and they said, when you guys told us you could build those ladders, we walked off and said, these guys are a bunch of liars too. Well, Ryan went back to work with, all the engineers. And I think like 3 months later, we had a ladder, we had prototypes, and we called these people up and they go, yeah, what do you want? We go, we've got your ladders. Where do we send them? And they're like, you got to be kidding me.
3 months.
Yeah. So what happened is they said, well, we're having this big meeting with all the cable companies, all the safety people, ship them out there, bring them out there, show them to us. And so we brought the ladders out and their minds were blown away.
I'm kidding.
And so we, they said, well, could you build us like 15 or 20 of these and we'll test them out in the field with all our technicians? And so what happened was they loved the ladders so much that they were supposed to take them. The techs were supposed to give them to other techs after a couple of weeks and then let them try them. But people would almost get in fights over these, like Comcast. They would be like, this is my ladder. And so what happened was it reduced their accidents hugely. And they were like, at first they were like, you know what, we're just going to replace all these ladders, as they break and wear out. But they saved so much money. They saved millions of dollars in workman's comp claims that they went and bought all of the ladders. They just said, this is worth it. We're going to sell or give away or trash our old ladders. We literally took over the cable market within 1 or 2 years. And the other ladder companies we just nailed them. I mean, they were so surprised. We took it over. I remember being at a trade show and the CEO of Warner Ladder walked up and he goes, man, you didn't just take some of the business, you took it all. And yeah. I thought to myself, we did it by listening. And Warner was one of the ones that they were so mad about because they just lied and said, yeah, we'll do it. And they didn't do it. Well, by that time, they started to try to copy the ladder, and figure out they were behind the 8 ball already. And they could never figure out how we got the ladder as light as we did. And they never, we just kept the business. And so again, it was just listening to the customer, building what they want, stay with quality. And, we were able to sell, in 5 years to the cable business, it was, probably 150 to 180 million dollars in ladders that we sold to these guys, and we still have all the business. It was just incredible. And Ted was part of that, your brother.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. In fact, I was planning to ask you some questions about sales, but really, it's funny that there's this underlying theme of like simplicity, right? Mm-hmm. What do you want to sell your customers? In fact, why don't you just turn around and ask them, like, what is it that you need? And when you have an established business like that and you just listen to what it is that they're requesting and you deliver on that, success happens. Like it's quite simple, but I think so many people actually struggle to do that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like if you walk in to buy a car today, I mean, things are a little bit different now with COVID and everything, but man, car salesmen are the worst. All they do is just talk. They don't listen, right? They just try to be so pushy and aggressive, and you don't need to do that. You have one mouth and 2 ears. Just listen to people and see what their needs are, take care of them, provide a quality product. But so many salespeople are just terrible. I mean, it's just, they're just too aggressive. They don't listen and they don't build a relationship. I mean, I'm best friends with the guy at Charter that was the safety guy, the guy at Comcast that was the safety guy, the guys at Time Warner. A lot of these guys are retired now, but we're still friends. And so we develop a relationship first, and people buy from people that they like and trust. Okay. And so you do that first. And then, as you build a relationship and let people know, hey, this guy is a nice guy, he's a good guy, and he's got our best interests, in mind, then you go, and help them.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit too, because I have a question about the family business that Chris touched on earlier. And I'm very curious about the contrast of, being a part of a family business and the legacy that your dad built with the company. What are some things that you kind of carry in that legacy that you want to continue on, or, things that he did? And then on the reverse of that, what things do you think you do quite differently?
That's a pretty interesting question. I mean, I'm involved in another company right now, and we really try to treat our employees, in a special way, and, let them know that they're important and that they're loved and cared about. Our culture at Little Giant was so interesting. Every meeting we had, and I know this blows people's minds, but every meeting we had prayer before these meetings.
I remember this.
I remember this one couple came from back east, and they were not of our faith, which is great. I mean, a lot of people pray, right? Of course, and they believe in God. But this guy, he comes up to me and he goes, I've never been in a meeting like this before. He goes, this is just unbelievable. I can't believe it. And so, but it was just a short period of time. And then him and his wife, they were, saying the prayers before our meetings, but, just things like that. We had real Christmas parties where my dad would read out of Luke 2, the story of Christ, and share his feelings about that. And not everybody there was a believer, but he didn't, cram it down people's throats. But I'll give you a quick story about my dad. Like, we had and I know we have limited time, but we had an employee that got themselves in really bad financial trouble. And, we're in a meeting, the management team, my brother and I, and the CFO and the CEO of the company, we're in this meeting, and my dad pops in, and he would just, my dad was he was retired then, but he's like, hey, what's going on, guys? And our CEO, Ryan, said, hey, we've got an employee that kind of got himself in trouble, and he's actually going to lose his house. And man, he just, he's kind of down on his luck, and I just wish we could do something. And my dad goes, well, isn't he on a quarterly bonus? And Ryan said, yeah, he's on a quarterly bonus. And my dad goes, does he make his bonuses? And we're like, yeah, he gets his bonus every time. This was like about $70,000 or $80,000 that he needed. My dad goes, give him the money, he'll pay us back. And so we actually gave him the money. He was able to keep his house, and he got his bonuses every time, and he paid us back. Now, that employee is still working there at Little Giant. And I'm telling you, if my dad called that guy at 1 a.m. and said, I need your help, he would be there. But he was so loyal to us. But how many bosses do that, right?
Right.
Their employees. Nobody does it. And so, these, like I said in the beginning, our employees knew that we loved them, we cared about them. I mean, every month we would, sign birthday cards for every employee, the management team would, and every employee at Little Giant got their birthday off with pay. So we did little things like that just, they just were so loyal to you because they knew, gosh, these guys care about us, that we're valued. And they would bust their backs for you. And it was really neat to see that. Now, I don't know how I'm any different. I could go back and answer your question. I mean, the two partners I have right now in our new business, we do a lot of the same things. We only have probably 120 employees now, but we try to help people who, are a little down on their luck sometimes and give them opportunities. And we try to do the little things to help them and to let them know that we love and care about them.
That's really beautiful. And I love that there doesn't have to be many differences in how you do business together, especially with the way that he ran his business and building trust both ways, and how you carry that on into your businesses now. I think that's really beautiful.
I want to back up. Yeah, I want to back up for a second if I could. I mean, I love that we talk about this connection. We talk about people, because I'm a firm believer in that too. How has that been? We also talked about innovation. Now you've got the, and I know you're not a Little Giant anymore, but I kind of want to continue to dive into this. How did you handle those relationships when you're doing like a live on Zoom? How could you create that same connection? Was that a struggle? What did you do to try to make sure that wasn't lost?
I wasn't there when they, during a lot of the COVID, when we did a lot of that, but I'm sure that they had relationships. Maybe it was different a little bit in that we weren't doing face-to-face, but nobody was doing a lot of the face-to-face then. But they still managed to find out people's whys, and then they would do those video, the Zooms and things. They would get that information before and then be prepared when they were doing their meetings to, okay, well, here's their pain points. This is what they're doing. But I'm sure that our sales guys, I know quite a few of them that were still there. And of course, they would keep in contact with them through the phone, through, they had good relationships, and they kept those relationships the best way they could through texting, phone, video chat, and Zoom and all that stuff.
Were they doing like live demos? I mean, is that what you did? You built a studio where people could come in and maybe the board could jump on and watch somebody like you go in and actually demo the ladder?
Yeah. So what happened is it's a beautiful facility they have there. Since we were doing like over 300 trade shows and our guys were going out.
Man, that's a ton.
Our guys were going out every other week. So you look at the money that we were spending on travel and hotels and all that stuff. And so they took that money and invested it into the studio because everything died when COVID came and it just shut down. So they took all that money and they were able to, pay cash for this beautiful, and they called the Howling Studio, and it's really beautiful. And we could do stuff for QVC or, Lowe's or Costco or any of those people. We could train big companies, like big construction companies. Ted was doing stuff on cable. They would say, okay, we're going to do this Southeast regional thing for Comcast. And then people would would go on the Zoom, and Ted would go through all the new innovations that we had for cable. So it worked out really well.
I love it. I also love another thing that you do, Doug, that people don't know about is you give back in the community in a big, big way. I know that you've done the Honoring Heroes Foundation, and I've had the opportunity a number of times to go on this motorcycle ride, and it's fun. I mean, this is cool because we'll get the highway patrol and all these local chapters that will like seriously, block off intersections and lights. And we have a bunch of fun. I'll tell you a funny story that my wife, when she was going to go with me, she said, so we're doing this Halloween ride, but it's in July. Am I supposed to wear like a cat outfit or something? I'm like, no, Jen, it's Halloween Memorial Ride. This is not a Halloween ride.
It does sound like it now that you say it like that.
I know. Anyways, we did this. We do it every year that we can, and it's just a lot of fun. So talk to me a little bit about some of the other things that you're doing, and maybe even that foundation, how you're giving back to the community and why that's important.
Well, that was one thing that we learned from both my mom and my dad, is that my dad would always say, the money I have, the things I've been blessed with are not mine, but they are kind of on loan to me throughout my life. And he would say, someday I'm going to have to give an accounting. Hey, I really blessed you. What did you do with all these things? Did you just, spend it on yourself, or did you help other people? And that was one of the neat things I learned about my dad when he was gone, and my parents is, man, some of the things they did were incredible. Of course, they were in private. Little things, like I interviewed a guy named Steve Curtis, and he goes, I was kind of your dad's guy that did all these special projects. He goes, I remember the first time I came to work for your dad, he called me and said, meet me out in front of this guy's house. And he goes, we showed up, I met your dad, and your dad said, hey, I want to put a new roof on this guy's house. He's kind of down on his luck. He goes, ring his doorbell and tell him we're going to put a new roof on his house. And my dad leaves. And Steve's like, I didn't know what to do. He goes, I'm like, is this for real? And so he goes, I ring the guy's doorbell, and the guy comes to his door, and he's like, hey, I know this sounds weird, but there's a guy in the community. He doesn't want me to use his name. He wants me to tell you that we're going to re-roof your house. And the guy's like, is this a joke? Is this some kind of a undercover TV thing? But the thing I like about my dad was who goes around or I don't know how my dad found out, but did he go around and look, for needs and stuff for people? But I think my dad really was aware of those types of things. And he just always kind of looked out, hey, who can I help today? Whose life can I bless, or lives can I bless? And so that's kind of one thing I do is, as I go throughout my day, I'm like, okay, I'll say my prayers in the morning, and I'll say, if there's anybody I can help today, kind of guide me to them, lead me to them. And it works. I mean, I end up finding people that I can help, but I think that's one thing. My parents were so good. They were such good examples at doing that. And they just had integrity. If we have time, I'll tell you this amazing story that's going to be in my new book. I'm writing this new book about integrity, and the stories are all about my life and my dad's life and my mom's life. And so I'm writing the first book, and I'm interviewing a guy whose name is Curtis Bennett, and he was the general manager at O.C. Tanner Jewelers in Salt Lake. My dad really loved jewelry, and he enjoyed wearing nice jewelry, but my mom was the one he would spoil her, and she just had Bling, she was Mrs. Wing, but she was also Mrs. Bling, And, but anyway, so here's a story that's going to be in the new book. That's incredible. That's just a story of integrity. These people come into my dad's office, a couple, they are down on their luck. They are going to lose their home. They're going to lose everything. And people would come into my dad and some would ask for money, but some would just say, what can you do for us? But this couple comes in and they've got this trunk. It's a pretty good sized trunk. And they walk into his office and they said, hey, we're a little down on our luck. But we have this jewelry. Can we show it to you? And my dad's like, sure, and so they bring this trunk and they set it on his desk and they open it up and it's just full of like these family heirlooms and beautiful jewelry that they had inherited from their parents or grandparents. And they said, hey, we don't know what this jewelry is worth, but we think it's worth this. And they said to my dad, if you'll give us $100,000, we'll give you this jewelry. And my dad looks at this jewelry and he says, I think your jewelry is worth a lot more money than $100,000. Would you let me make a phone call to my friend Curtis Bennett in Salt Lake and see if he could come up and you could show him your jewelry? So he calls right there when they're in the office and he says, oh yeah, send him up. So this couple goes up to see him and it's beautiful jewelry. And I never knew this story. And Curtis says, it took me about 2 years to sell this jewelry for them. But he goes, I ended up selling it all for $2.5 million.
Whoa.
And he said, here's the cool story about your dad. He goes, your dad knew exactly what that was worth. Mm-hmm. And he could have easily written a check for $100,000 and taken advantage of these people and said, oh, I'm helping them. But no, that's not what Hal Wing did. The best part of this story is after all the jewelry was sold, that couple came back to my dad with a check for $100,000. My dad, and he wouldn't take it.
Wow. I love that.
I have goosebumps from that story. That's so sweet.
Yeah. That's the kind of man that Hal Wing was. And the kind of person too, that my mother was, is they were just so full of integrity and goodness. And so growing up in this family, again, we weren't perfect. There were times when I was younger and I was working and I didn't like my dad because I had to do the same monotonous jobs.
But it sounds like he definitely instilled the value of hard work in your family, which is, it's amazing. It's something that not everybody does anymore, but to grow up with that, it's such a life lesson.
Yeah. One of my favorite things he would tell the salespeople is you can tell the customer anything you want to, as long as it's the truth. And so he just had these little one-liners that are in my book, Giant Success, in the back, that, he would say things like, don't lie, don't steal, and don't be lazy. Just the basics of, be a good person, and do the right thing. So they were great.
I love how you honor too your parents. I mean, that is something that happens less and less. And what's really interesting, and I don't know if you caught this, Laura, every time we're asking Doug about him, he's talking about where he learned all of this stuff. And what I love too is here's the book. The book is Giant Success. Go check it out, giantsuccess.com. I loved reading it. There's so many principles that does not matter what type of business you're in, what type of relationships you have. All of these things apply across the board. Well, maybe before we let you go, Doug, maybe you can tell us just a brief little thing about what you're doing now, what's getting you excited in business, and then tell everybody where they can go to kind of learn more about you.
Yeah, right now. So I had a friend he's really big into apartments, and we surfed together in some church stuff. And one night he said to me, you and I are going to be partners together sometime. And I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to be doing something with him, and so interestingly enough, I ended up going through a divorce, and I had to pay dearly for this divorce. It was I was married a long time, and I lost all of my savings. I mean, all the money I had in 401k was pretty much wiped out. And then, things. And then as I ended up selling the business, this friend of mine came back to me and he said, hey, you should get involved with us in multifamily housing and real estate and property management. And it actually worked out really good because, again, as I mentioned, my savings is gone. And so I ended up becoming involved in it. We started a new company, Bohr Investment Group, and we have a bunch of different apartments, multifamily housing, property management. We do some Airbnb stuff, but mostly, monthly around colleges and different things like that. And it has been a huge blessing in my life because the income that that's generated from these properties will just go on even after I'm dead and gone, And so it was a real big blessing. And I'm involved with two awesome men that are they're just like my dad. They're so honest. They have integrity. And so it's been a really fun blessing in my life. I don't really do a lot. These guys are the experts. I don't really do a lot of the day-to-day operations of the company, but we're also able to help, other people and employ people. And it's been great. But the main thing I've really been doing the last couple of years is working on books and doing a little speaking, as I mentioned, I'm working on my third book. And my first publisher was out of Texas, but now I'm involved. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mark Victor Hansen, but yeah, he's one of the most successful.
Chicken Soup for the Soul?
Yeah, he's a co-creator along with Jack Canfield. But anyway, I went to dinner with him one night in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he's like, "Tell me about your first book." He goes, "I've heard of your dad before. I know about Little Giant." And I tell him some stories. And he's like, "I want to sign you to a publishing contract with our company." And I was like, "Wow. What the heck?" And he said, "The first book is going to be called The Giver. And believe me, Doug, it's going to be a bestseller." And I kind of laughed, and it was, and that was exciting. But my first book too, I had a buddy named Jeffrey Gitomer. He's like a big time sales trainer.
He did the foreword for it.
Yeah, he's written this. This is the most successful sales book ever written, The Little Red Book of Selling. But yeah. And anyway, he told me after I told him these stories about Little Giant, he goes, "You're going to write this book and it's going to be a bestseller." And I laughed at him and he's like, "Do it." And so anyway, I didn't see
he was right.
Yeah, both of these men were right. And so, one thing I really enjoyed is I learned a new talent, right? I learned how to do something and it's been a lot of fun. I'm working on number 3. And I do a little bit of speaking. One thing I really like, I've done a few companies, but I really love it. I've spoken to several schools and I love it. The kids just eat this stuff up. That's and, great. If I can make a difference in some kid's life, because when I was a sophomore in high school, I had an English teacher in front of the whole class. She told me I was stupid and I'd never amount to anything.
Oh, man.
I've been trying to find this teacher for a long time. I think she's alive.
Oh man. And as youth, you carry that stuff with you.
Yeah. But I knew I wasn't because I had an amazing mom and dad who had super confidence in themselves. But I'm looking for this lady all the time and I want to take her to lunch and say, I did okay,
Yeah. Wow. And you can have such an impact on youth. So being able to speak to students, like grade school students, must be so impactful. So cool.
Yeah, I went and taught I swear it was like a second or third grade, these little kids, and they read the book as a class. And
oh, I love it.
And the teacher said, "What are some of the things you learned from the book?" And this little girl raised her hand and she goes, "Patience is a waste of time." That's what my dad used to say. It's like, holy cow, these kids are so smart. And
yeah, they get it.
But my dad wasn't very patient. And he was like, "Let's get it going, let's get it done,"
Key takeaway.
Yeah, we could talk to you all day too, Doug. Listen, key takeaways, speaking of that, oh my gosh, really focusing on what people need. People matter, whether they're employees, whether they're the customers. Where's the best place for people to go and learn more about you? You want them to go to giantsuccess.com? Is that the best place?
Yeah, giantsuccess.com is great because it talks about, there's a lot of things on there about Hal and about, my training and my speaking and the books and everything like that. That's where you can find out all the information. So
perfect. We appreciate you being on. I'm loving this episode, one of my favorites, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much, Doug.
Thanks so much, Doug. This is great.
It's been an honor. Thank you. I hope it's been okay.
Yes.
Thank you.